Hey guys, so I'm back here at the rock wall at Marymore, and just as promised, I'm going to make a video on different skills that you could use while climbing in top access areas like Ouray or Joshua Tree, name a few. I'm going to talk about rope anchors in this video, and I know I have a video a couple weeks ago of different rope anchors, which I just put out, and those rope anchors are more for like a multi-pitch sort of situation when you get to the top of a pitch and you realize you don't have any anchor materials with you. This video is going to be more for top rope anchors in the single pitch environment, which are going to be more complex sort of rope anchors that are set up for all day use with a group of people. This is sort of stuff that you would see in the SPI world. If any of you guys are single pitch instructors, these are going to be taken straight out of the book from the single pitch instructor's manual. And I'm going to explain the pros and cons. I'll show you two different anchors that are the most widely used ones, pros and cons of each, and then also talk you through how to make them, just like in my other videos. So stay tuned and enjoy. Okay, so here I am now. For these specific top rope anchors, I'm going to talk about the protection first. And what you see here is I have a bit of extra gear in the wall. All these wall placements and cement. I love these. It is worth mentioning that one is this wall isn't made for trad climbing, but also if you're ever worried about a piece, if it looks marginal like that, it is worth adding more pieces to your anchor. Maybe have a 4-piece anchor, or just find a better spot than what I got up there. But these are just demonstrations, so I don't really care that much. So for these top rope anchors, while using a rope style anchor, you usually beef up your anchor a bit more, because again, this anchor is designed for all day use with multiple people and full group on it, up to 6, 7, 8 climbers using the same anchor all day. And so the idea with this among the industry is that you want to beef up your anchor more than just say a standard 3-point anchor that you would use in a multi-pitch sense. Because if you are just using this for a multi-pitch climb, you're getting up there, you build the anchor, bring your friend up to the anchor, and then move on, and you disassemble the anchor. So it's more efficient to have a single 3-point anchor rather than having some sort of 5-piece monstrosity. In a single pitch sense, again, where tons of people are using this anchor, you want something a bit more beefy than a 3-point anchor. So what I have here is, for one leg of my anchor, and keep in mind I'm using a rope anchor, so for one leg, I'm going to have 2 legs in this anchor, 1 and 2. I'm going to have each leg be a full anchor in itself. So what I have here is my standard 3-point trad anchor, and then I have 2 really bomber pieces of gear. What we want to avoid is having one cam on a leg, or one piece on a leg. You can make the argument for a bolt being a bit better, but we want each leg to be a full anchor in itself. So I have 3 pieces right there, and then 2 absolutely bomber pieces, which would be fine as an anchor in themselves, as long as I'm actually using real rock and not cement. So I could add a 3rd piece up there and make it a 3-piece anchor, but 2 pieces will be just fine in this case. And you'll also notice how I went the full mile with a quad sling here, and equalizing end a master point. Here I used a single length sling with a master beaner right here, and with a clove hitch, so that way it's still redundant. You also notice how on the master point I put locking carabiners. Ideally, I would want at least one of these carabiners to be an auto-locking carabiner, like a magnetron or something like that. But this is what I have. I used a Metolius locker here because they take forever to unlock. So, but 2 non-auto locking carabiners are just fine. And also, what I did is I'm just going to use this dynamic 60-meter rope. Ideally, or most of the time, people will use static rope for this. Nice climbing static rope will be just fine. Somewhere in the range of, well, it kind of depends on your area, but somewhere around like 30 meters to 35 meters is great for many top rope anchor sites where you need a rope anchor. So having something like 35 meters of static rope would work pretty well. This is just the rope I'm using because it's what I had in my car. All right, so I etched a line in the dirt right there along the bark. So that's going to be the edge of my cliff. You'll notice how it's actually a pretty decent ways away from my anchor, which this is like the good time to use a rope anchor, is when you have to deal with your edge being way far away, and then your anchor setup is way back here. Again, in multi-pitch situations, it doesn't really matter that much, but in top rope situations, you don't want your rope running over that edge and back to your anchor way over here. So I need to extend my anchor out that way. And that's kind of what rope anchors are, is it's an extension of your anchor, extension of the master points to make it so that way you can work with your end being way over there. So again, I have a figure 8 on a bite connected to my first 3-point anchor right here. Figure 8 on a bite, or just figure 8 on the end, is a great way to sort of really keep your anchor in line. What I'm going to do is pull the rope. I usually do something like that, where I measure the amount of rope that I'm pretty sure I'll need to the edge right there. This does give you a little bit of adjustment, but not a huge amount. And then with, I got a sort of good loop right here. With this end, I'll tie another figure 8 on a bite. There you go, and I'm gonna make sure the knot is nice and clean, because I am gonna depend on this all day. Make sure that it's really well tied. And I'll clip this in to my master point of my other anchor I just showed you. Lock that carabiner down. And now, the cool situation we have here is, this is a fixed loop. So, while I'm adjusting what I want with the anchor, I can actually use this loop to protect myself while I'm getting closer to the edge. I can do that any number of ways. I can use a gree-gree if I want, but in this case, my gree-gree is on the ground right now, so I'm going to use a friction hitch, which I'll just do climb heist. There we go, climb heist, and that's going to one of my anchors, because again, remember, these are full anchors that can easily support body weight, that are fully redundant and serene and everything. Hook that to myself with a locking carabiner. And there we have it. So I got this connected to my my belay loop, and I know someone's probably going to comment about how you're not supposed to put your full life on one friction hitch, but keep in mind that I'm not going to be weighting it most of the time, and it's okay if you put your full life on a friction hitch, but you have some sort of backup. Usually that's a connection point to your belay loop, or I could even put this knot right here. So that way if the friction hitch does fail, it'll just collapse on the catastrophe knot. But this is a full loop right here, and I'm not weighting it, so I'm going to hold off that for now. Alright, so I've worked my way back on the rope. I can slide that forward to protect me from the edge, which is right here. I'm going to pull both my lines in. I'm going to pull them both in line, so that way they're both tight back on the anchor. Then I'm just going to run my hands through until I reach the actual middle of that loop. Right here, you probably have seen a number of people tie a number of different knots. The figure 8 seems to be what I see most people tying for a master point. And this is great if you're not worried about this little section right here, because the figure 8 does make both legs redundant of each other, so if one of these cuts, then you're fine, but it doesn't make a redundant master point loop. And so that's kind of the big downfall with using the figure 8 or the overhand knot. So instead, we equal these out again. I'm going to tie a BHK, which you may have seen in my other videos. I tend to tie them a lot, but what I'm going to do is take the end of the rope and fold it down, bring this around, tie it in an overhand on a bite, and then I have this little loop right here, which I have to deal with somehow. A lot of people like clipping it like that, because this is where you're running your top rope off of, right? So I just take 2 lockers and clip it. There you go, that's a possible solution. The one I like more is folding this all the way over the knot. And then there, the knot itself, if this starts to slip back up, the knot itself will stop the rope. Take your two nice round stock locking carabiners, and then you put your actual rope in here and throw it over the edge. All right, so here we have the completed anchors so far. There are my two anchors right there, going down to a rope with a figure eight on a bite on each end with a locking carabiner. Here are my legs going down. There's my little safety action I put in. Tracing all the way down to my BHK with two lockers on the end. And then this is my metaphorical edge right here. So this is kind of like not bad. The rope's hanging a little bit off the edge. That's no big deal if it's a little bit off the edge. But this is kind of how you would have a redundant anchor set up with a rope. Now here, let me add one more thing on top of this, and that's what if, and again this is getting more into the world of like SPI or guiding, or the scenario with this would be if you're climbing in Uray or whatever and you're top roping with your 2-3 friends. You guys all take a top rope lap on this, and then instead of walking all the way around the crag up to the top to dismantle this, one thing you could do is you, as the most experienced person, could climb up, hop over the edge, and then belay the other two people up from the ground up to this point, and you guys get to climb up rather than walking back to retrieve all your gear. There is actually kind of a simple solution to this, and that's just making your anchor a bit more complex. And that's going to be introducing the idea of a lower master point and a higher master point somewhere up here. I'll show you guys two ways of doing this. First, I'll show you sort of my lesser favorite way, and then the way I prefer the most. Alright, so here's my master point. I'm going to slide back a little bit to the point where I could belay from above comfortably, and I'm going to take all the rope here, slide down, and then just do another overhand on a bite. And that's it. I may have to adjust a few things, give myself a little bit more rope. There we go. So now I just made the bite right here slightly smaller, so that way my lower anchor point could still, well, if it had a rope there, would still hang over the edge. But now what I did is I gave myself the freedom to climb up on a top rope. When I get up here, I take the top roping rope, not the anchor rope, throw that aside, and now I can use this to clip myself in for safety and also belay my friends up on some sort of belay from above mode with my top anchor sight. And then I can bring everyone in safely to the top right here, and we could just take apart our anchor and then walk back to the car. So that's kind of the nice part about having this higher and lower master point. There is, sorry, the wind is really bad today. There is another way to build this whole system, and that's kind of like if you're thinking ahead and know that you want to switch between a top and a bottom managed anchor style throughout the day. Usually this is again more common for guiding, but some recreational group may be switching from top to bottom for whatever reason. And so I'm going to show you that method. These do have names, but I don't remember what the names are, so I'm going to look them up and put them in right below the video for these two anchor styles. Okay, so how I'm going to start this rope anchor is I'm going to have one of my anchors right here attached with the figure eight on a bite with the locking carabiner. I'm not going to grab as much rope this time. Just spill out maybe about that much for a decent loop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to construct my higher master point before my lower master point, whereas the other anchor we did it where we did the lower master point first and then the higher master point. There you go. Tie another figure eight on a bite and clip that into my anchor. Okay, so now, whoops, if I grab the right strand of the knot, I have this decent sized loop right here. I'm gonna find that point of tension, and then I'm going to tie a BHK right here. And make it kind of small. There we go. And then with this anchor, it's almost better to actually just flip this over, because there's going to be a time where you're operating specifically on this anchor, and so it's best just to get this little loop out of the way rather than clipping it into the carabiners. So this is going to be my higher master point. You can see where my line is right there. And so I have my higher point for when I'm belaying people up, and then I want to get a lower point for when I switch this to a top rope system. So the first thing that I'll do is take 2 locking carabiners. I'm not going to make them reversed and opposed because I'm actually using these as my legs now. You'll see how I have enough loop coming from just my extra rope. Then right here, I will also tie a figure 8 on a bite. There's going to be a lot of these. Put that into one, lock it down, pull this end. Let's try to estimate the amount of rope I'll need again for my master point. Then I'll come back to here. And tie yet another figure 8 on a bite. Now I have yet another loop, which I can then tie my BHK on. Pull that over. There we go. And now I have enough rope to go over the edge. And the system is completely modular. So this is all my lower master point. If I climb up from the ground, get up here, all I have to do is grab these strands, unlock the carabiners, then chuck this all to the side, and then I have my upper master point to work with. And so that's what I really like. This is my preferred system for rope anchors because of how modular it is. You can really just sort of set up anything you want. It does take extra gear, however, because you got those 2 lockers, and then you also have 2 lockers on the master point, which kind of creates a kind of a black hole for all your gear, along with 2 lockers. So you need at least 6 lockers to make this anchor work. So that can be kind of annoying with the amount of locking carabiners you would need, but it's just worth it for the versatility of the anchor. Okay guys, that's kind of like a wrap on my rope anchors series. I know I kind of went a little more in depth than I was planning to in this with the single pitch sort of rope anchors and the multi-pitch rope anchors, but now I hope that sort of provides a good baseline for extending your master point further than you could easily with conventional anchor materials. A lot of you are probably watching this saying, why don't I just get a large loop of webbing, or you could use cord, a really long loop of cord to do sort of the same thing. And there's kind of nothing wrong with that. A lot of people at these top axis sites will just have like a 9-foot piece of webbing, or you know, a 10-12-foot piece of cord that they'll make with their anchors, and sometimes they'll be tied off on 2 ends, kind of like a runner, and or like a rabbit sort of runner, and so that way all I have to do is clip 1 loop into 1 anchor, bring it way down, clip another loop, and use it like 2 long quick draws. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is also pretty limiting, especially if you're building anchors that are, you know, over 8 feet, 10 feet back from your actual top roping point, which isn't uncommon. You may get that depending on where you are. And so when it gets to, being 8-10 feet back, it's a lot better to use rope in your anchor and just build a full system like I did. In other places where it's like the schoolhouse, I think that's what it's called at Ouray, has a bunch of water climbs, and you're just hopping off the railing and going straight down. The anchor's maybe like 2 feet back. then yeah, those longer runner type things like webbing or cord that would totally work for that. And if you're setting up multiple top ropes, then it would be the better solution. But then other places like New Frontier and South Park, again, also Uray references, they have anchors that are getting pretty far back there. I built one anchor while I was just there that was at least 20 feet back from the climb. And then I used the rope for it because that's kind of the best material I have for that style of anchor that's so far back. And so it's good to have this in your bag of tricks and be ready for it when you go to some of these top axis sites. I know they're not too common in many different places, but they're definitely useful to know for when you do go to those places. So if you like my video, then I guess give it a thumbs up or whatever. If you have any other questions, then feel free to comment. If you want to see any other videos, just leave a comment about that. I love doing videos that people actually want to see, and I'll see you guys in the next one.